In Act 4, the famous cliffs of Dover in England are described. Looking from the precipice down, the fishermen that walk along the beach appear like mice. And the murmuring surge that on the unnumbered idle pebbles chafes cannot be heard so high. And then from down below looking up, the perception is that the shrill sounding lark up there can't be seen or heard. This chasm or abyss is an excellent allegory for the perspectives of the characters in this play. It is an allegory that comes from Taoism, describing the chasm between people's understandings of one another. The two different perspectives of one another are described as one, there is a great bird that soars so high in the sky that when it looks down on the ground, it just sees patterns of color. And second, by contrast, the little sparrow that hops on the ground and never gets up very high sees everything up close, all the little grains and the stalks of wheat, and sees all the little ants and bugs on the ground. What this is all about is that the capacity of the mind to comprehend things is finite, is limited, as we see of the characters in this play. Shakespeare develops a perspective on people, on society, on government, and on morality, which is based upon this philosophy of Taoism, or skepticism about our ability to know things. For example, Goneril sees that the king and his knights are abusing their roles. And so she calls for a rectification of names, obligations, duties, and responsibilities. She speaks, "Here do you keep 100 knights and squires, so disordered, so debauched and bold, that this our court, infected with their manners, shows like a riotous inn. Epicurism and lust make it more like a tavern or a brothel than a graced palace." And her sister Regan also understands the gravity of the situation. When she speaks in conversation, she says, "My sister must take it much worse to have her gentleman abused, assaulted." And what they both also see very clearly is the fact that when dealing with senility, it is advised that one should lock up all weapons. And this here means removing all knights. But Goneril's husband, Albany, does not see the danger here. He speaks of the king, "a father and a gracious aged man, whose reverence even the head-lugged bear would lick." But Albany, Kent, Cordelia, these characters see the humanity that the father was deprived, the dignity that Regan and Goneril deprived their father of. Albany speaks, "What have you done? Tigers, not daughters. What have you performed? What, in the storm? In the night?" Shakespeare shows us that the capacity of the mind to comprehend things is finite, is limited. Our knowledge is always partial. And Shakespeare shows us, as in Taoism, that when we act on the basis of partial knowledge, there is going to be consequences that we cannot anticipate. In Taoism, inaction is actually advocated. In Western thought, we have this common sense idea about the law of unintended consequences. When you do things, there are always consequences that weren't what you meant. When we act, we don't know what the result of our actions are going to be. And indeed, often in trying to make things better, we simply wind up confusing things or making things worse. This flies in the face of someone like Goneril, who is very proactive. And no wonder she clashes horribly with her husband, Albany, who is at the opposite end of the polarity with inaction. You just have to wonder at the mess and the chaos and the destruction and the tragedy of this play. You have to remember what Albany says at the very beginning. Striving to better, oft we mar what's well.